In this month's JOJOLands, Paco goes on an absolute rampage, the gang heads to the beach for a dip, a lucky local catches an $80,000 fish, and we may have found ourselves the newest member of the gang. So hello everyone and welcome back to the channel for another JOJOLands review, where today we'll be breaking down chapter 11 titled The Hustle Part 2. So getting right into things, starting with the cover page, we got Jodio hitting that Mr. Beast pose with his stands rain in the background. And turning the page, getting into the actual chapter now, we pick up where we left off, with Dragona using smooth operators to perform an emergency operation, as the last chapter ended with the cliffhanger of Dragona stabbed clean through the neck by the enemy who has also stolen the lava rock by using their stand to manipulate perspectives, we think so far. And at the start here, we actually see how Dragona can use their stand to heal. So we know that smooth operators can distort and rearrange things like the numbers of a license plate, an ID, someone's face, and even rearrange their own body. Although in this scene, we see this ability used in a slightly new way, as Dragona transfers the wound on their neck to another object, and once the transfer is complete, it also applies the damage to the bottle, breaking it in half with a considerable amount of force, while Dragona's internal wound and any damage caused by the cut seems to be healed. So it's not just getting rid of the cut, it's pretty much undoing and transferring the entire action, which is something I didn't even think Dragona could do, which really changes the way I see the stand and how useful it is, sort of establishing Dragona as the healer of the group, as I assume it is possible for them to do this on another person to heal them, or transfer a wound from one person to another as an attack. So more development of Dragona's stand, we love to see it, and following this, Usagi has a moment where he confesses his love to Dragona, which we've always known he has a thing for them, and I actually thought this was kind of sweet, especially with how expressive Usagi is. Although he gets shut down almost instantly, as Dragona says they're not really interested in that. So it's nice to see more dynamics developing between the cast and how everyone feels about each other, as it's these dynamics which ultimately impact their actions. Although I really hope this doesn't turn into Usagi's defining character trait and it's hit over and over, with him constantly seeking Dragona's affection while always being shrugged off, kind of like Jolene and Anasui. I like the vibe they have right now, and I just hope Usagi doesn't develop into this desperate fool whose entire character is just simping for Dragona all the time, as he seems to do in this chapter. As following the rejection, he seems kind of embarrassed, so he tries to make himself useful by telling Dragona to ask the Mate Kudasai for a metal detector, because you know the enemy was carrying that big knife, which no one even acknowledges the idea because it's stupid. There could be metal literally anywhere, and I thought the stand could only duplicate things around it, like the camera and the cat's net, so I'm not even sure if he could do that. So better than a metal detector, Paco sees the blood trail the enemy left behind from when Jodio got his leg at the end of the last chapter, which leads them to a nearby parking lot where Paco then proceeds to grab everyone he sees by the throat, which just seems to be his first reaction to any encounter and signature move at this point. He did it to Rohan, the lava rock dude, random pedestrian, and Leo-kun. The men's just got no patience for anyone's bullshit, and I gotta respect it. And I love how when the gang are tracking the blood trail, Paco uses hand signals to communicate, something we saw Passione use in part 5 during fights. I'm sure Rocky has probably used it in other parts, but it just kind of reminds me of Bruno in the part 5 gang. So the blood trail leads the gang to Leo's car, the minor character from the last chapter who currently has the watch that was attracted to the lava rock. And on the other side of the car, Jodio notices these sandy, rocky fragments used by the enemy, who suddenly appears within the car door. So I had my whole theory last review about how the user could be made of cloud droplets, which refract light, allow him to alter his appearance, and form within clouds. Although, now that seems a lot less likely, maybe still something to do with light, but this enemy can clearly just fuse with objects and project himself onto a 2D space, almost like a link between worlds, or as Paco so elegantly put it earlier, he can fuse with shit. So just a lot of things going on here. The user is made of these multicolored rock fragments. He can disappear in an instant by deconstructing and reforming. He can fuse with any object or 2D space and can perfectly replicate the appearance of somebody else. So I'd love to see how Araki ties all of this together into one larger overarching theme or concept once the arc is finished that goes a bit more into it than just manipulating perspectives. So the enemy had tried to cut Jodio, but missed breaking the car window, and Dragona points out that he's fused with the door and gives us a better look at his power. Although once Jodio activates November Rain, he disappears, like instantly, I believe by breaking himself down and blending in with all of the broken glass from the shattered window. Or the user might be able to simply just jump between sceneries like the way Hangman worked in part 3 and could teleport between mirrors and reflections. So while this enemy is quick to escape, we are thankfully still able to track him down through the lava rock's power of attraction, as Leo's watch, which is still tethered to the lava rock, begins to move towards the ocean, which reminds Dragona they still have the diamond and can use it almost like a compass to point out the rock's direction. And on the shoreline, while the environment is vibrant, there is a tension in the air as the gang walks along the water, following the rock, knowing the enemy could strike from anywhere. And we get some pretty cool illustrations of the enemy's power and how he is literally one with the environment, attacking as a wave coming up from the water and continuing to attack as it crashes onto the docks. And while this enemy is primarily focused on Paco, it gives Jodio a chance to get a hold of him and use November Rain to break their sword and push them both under the water. Although earlier, Jodio said his rain can't actually go underwater, it stops just below the surface, but Jodio makes use of his limitation by blocking off the surface, trapping both of them underwater together, but also pushes and punctures down one of the floaty boats on the surface, giving himself air to outlast the enemy. So now Lava Bro is pretty much forced to back off, drown, or accept defeat. Although for how intangible he's been throughout this fight, it seems likely he could just disappear again and escape Jodio's radius, which is only 3 meters, unless somehow being submerged in water impacts his ability, as Paco did keep saying his skin felt like sand, so maybe being in water for too long will turn him to mud or something. Although that'd be kind of stupid for him to go into water if it was his weakness. But that's where we leave the fight for now. And on the surface, Paco is talking about how he gets the impression this enemy is actually a pretty good guy. After all of this, he tried to kill Jodio, he tried to kill Dragona, and that they should make him one of us and tell Jodio to let him live, turning this all into a win-win situation, which surprisingly isn't that bad of an idea, as he's not trying to kill everyone. He only wants the lava rock and has given them a chance to hand it over, even trying to persuade Jodio, disguised as Paco earlier, to hopefully avoid a fight altogether. The enemy is only still attacking because the gang is still chasing, and the cats we thought he killed and stuffed into a bag turned out to just be potatoes apparently. It was just an illusion created from his ability, so he was trying to appear more intimidating than he actually was. And of course, as we know from Paco, his knife wielding skills suck ass, so he's probably not as scary as he's coming off, and maybe just as inexperienced and naive as the rest of the gang. But the main reason why Paco is trying to befriend him is because he clearly knows more about the lava rock, its ability, and where it comes from, and seems to be working solo, as he says the cats were probably just pets he was keeping in the jungle. So if the gang's intention is to learn more about the lava rock, then Paco is 100% right. Their best bet is to try to work together with this guy to learn more about the how and why behind its power, as I'm still betting on the theory that the Lava Bro is going to be the key to unlocking the larger plot of the part, revealing some important truth behind the lava rock or the lands of Hawaii themselves. And the chapter then ends with a new scene of a local fisherman who catches a fish with the $80,000 watch in its mouth. Probably just another example of how the flow will move things, and I would love if this watch for the entire part, we just get a page here and there of where it is, the journey it's going on, you know, whose hands it falls into, just like a long play gag, but only at the end, like the final chapter, does it finally come back to Jodio when he has the lava rock. That would be a really satisfying, like, long play gag for sure. And in the final page, Araki mixes things up from the more typical serious cliffhangers we've gotten recently, where we see a nearby Leo desperately looking in the water for the watch, as the girl he was with ditches his ass, saying she's gonna catch a ride with somebody else and get out of there. So looks like she was just a gold digger hanging around for his cash and is off to a new encounter. So overall, fire chapter, progressing the fight, incorporating some of the locals and side characters, more beautiful depictions of Hawaii's scenery, and leaves us with an exciting prospect that we may be gaining a new ally, or at the very least be someone who can shine a light on the mystery of this rock, where it comes from, or maybe have a connection to a larger villain group. Maybe something like the Hawaiian Mafia. Speaking of Mafia in Hawaii, are there any other Yakuza homies out there excited for Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth this month? I'm probably gonna fall off the face of the earth for like a week when it drops, and I can't help but notice the similarities to JoJo. You know, part 9 going to Hawaii and is a story about becoming filthy rich, while Yakuza Infinite Wealth is set in Hawaii. Pretty cool coincidence, and yeah, it's just cool that two of like my favorite franchises of all time, Like a Dragon and JoJo, are both have this like Hawaii setting, so really just feeling immersed in the culture recently. So definitely let me know in the comments if you guys are going to be playing Infinite Wealth, and like the video if you enjoyed. Thank you all so much for watching, subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you all real soon in a new video, but until then, I'm out. Peace.